Hello, my name is HQ of HQ Reacts. Welcome to my channel. Please do me a favor. Hit the like button, share the stream, and click the notification button for new content. Thank you. Hello.
Hello all, hello. HQ is always rushing to do some things. I don't know what the hell be going on. But our stream has been interesting, to say the least. So let's get into it.
The legality of President Donald Trump's ban on birthright citizenship. The president took the step to end birthright citizenship on his very first day in office and has been met with numerous legal pushback. Multiple judges have ruled that the president's order is unconstitutional. In June, a birthright citizenship case reached the Supreme Court, but they only ruled in favor of Trump on the issue of nationwide injunctions, not the policy itself.
So, the U.S. Constitution, people feel like this president is violating the U.S. Constitution. So we have to explain what the Constitution is, because the founders feared this kind of unchecked power. They had just fought a war against a king who ruled by decree and not by law. The goal was to build a system where no one person or branch of government could dominate the other ones, and where the rights of ordinary people were protected even when the leaders were unpopular or powerful. It was a rule book for our government, not just suggestions, not the way it is being used today. The Constitution is not a list of ideas or traditions. It's a rule book for how the government must operate. Every law, every policy, and action taken by federal officials is supposed to fit within the limits of our Constitution. If leaders ignore it when it's convenient or when it's inconvenient, then it stops being a guardrail and becomes meaningless words on paper. This is what is pissing people off. A rule book. Why following the Constitution matters? Following the Constitution ensures that there is fairness, stability, trust within our government. It keeps the rules the same no matter who is in power. Without it, policies change dramatically, like we've seen here before, depending on who holds office. That is not how the Constitution is supposed to work. Congress writes the laws. The president enforces those laws. He doesn't write laws. The courts interpret those laws. The separation is meant to prevent the abuse of those laws. When one branch starts doing the job of the other branch, the entire system tilts towards authoritarian rule. This is where we are with a constitutional crisis. I'm surprised more people are not outraged at what is going on. It's Congress's duty to hold this president accountable. Congress is not supposed to be loyal to a president. It's supposed to be loyal to the Constitution. Oversight, investigations, and impeachment are not political attacks. They are constitutional responsibilities. When Congress refuses to hold a president to account, it abandons one of the most important guardrails, safeguards in American democracy. The presidential oath matters. The presidential oath matters. You hear that? Every president swears an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. That oath is not symbolic. It means the president must put the Constitution above personal power, personal gain, party loyalty, political goals. Breaking that promise weakens public trust and sets a dangerous example for future leaders. Now, right now we have a president who people say has violated the Constitution, and I'll give you 10 constitutional violations that have been levied against this president. One is the Emoluments Clause violations, profiting from foreign and domestic governments. 2, obstructing justice. Trump obstructed justice. Well, he did that when he fired Comey, but that was in his first term. His second term was that the abuse of power? No, not second term. Wait a minute. The second term, that was the first term. I'm sorry. Second term is restricting transgender military service. Trump signed orders banning transgender people from serving, which courts have held likely violates constitutional rights, and they blocked the implementation of it. Issuing an executive order ending birthright citizenship. That's the 14th Amendment being violated. Due process concerns in immigration enforcement. That's the 5th Amendment violation. Ignoring federal court orders. Raising separation of powers and rule of law concerns about ignoring judicial authority. Undermining judicial independence. That's Article 3, guarantee of an independent judiciary. Reduction in due process rights. Violation of the 5th Amendment. Undermining congressional authority. Article 1, powers, legislative authority, and power of the purse. He's interfering in that power that doesn't belong to him. First Amendment and civil rights liberties. Civil rights advocates say he is trying to punish people for speaking out against him, Christianity, people, etc. That's a violation of the First Amendment. We already mentioned the Emoluments Clause. That's a conflict of interest. That's domestic and foreign emoluments clause. That's another violation. And erodes the oversight and accountability. Congressional oversight is key to keeping checks and balances in our country. Okay. All of these things are allegations against this president. Allegations, lawsuits, injunctions, criticisms, all of these things are going to come. Specifically when the Democrats take over the House. All of these things are going to come. Many of these actions are going to be litigated. Okay. Legal experts agree and disagree. Right? Here's the thing. Executive orders were never meant. EOs were never meant to replace the laws. Executive orders are meant to manage the executive branch, not to create new laws or override Congress like this president seems to want to do. They are tools for the administration, not shortcuts about or around democracy. So when the executive orders are used to achieve goals that Congress has not approved, it undermines the will of the people, which basically means when the president went over there and bombed Venezuelan boats, saying they were acting against the United States, or they put different labels on what they were doing, he's undermining the authority of Congress. When he put tariffs on other countries, he is undermining the powers of Congress. Okay. Executive power should have limits. If a president can govern primarily through executive order, then elections for Congress don't mean jack shit. That means they are unneeded. Congress and the House of Representatives is unneeded. The Senate and the House of Representatives is unneeded if the president can rule by executive orders. Laws stop being debated, compromised, and voted on. There's no point in them being there if the president can use all of that and he can do whatever he wants. That's not how that's supposed to work. Power becomes concentrated in his only office, in that one office, which is exactly what our Constitution was designed to prevent. The Supreme Court's role and its responsibility is being challenged. Yeah, let me put this on. Hold on. Let me put this on. Y'all, wait a minute. Hey, everybody. Hey, everybody. I don't know why I got a hair up my ass about this Constitution, but something is going on. And I just read through it.
The United States Supreme Court is allowing the Trump administration to continue with their cuts to the Department of Education.
The showdown over the power of the president.
The Constitution vests all of the executive power of the federal government in a single person, the president.
Do we have the rule of law or do we have royal decrees? That's what's at stake here.
You're not going to scare us, and we're not going to stop.
Our constitutional structure is definitely stressed.
Now on Frontline, Trump's power and the rule of law.
President Trump is at the Capital One Arena for his inauguration parade. He is expected to fire up that packed crowd there.
President Trump will sign in the arena from cheering crowds a number of executive orders.
Norms and institutions are a thing of the past. The wrecking ball is back. And this time, he and his supporters mean business. Things are going to get wrecked because they need to be.
Why don't you say what I'm saying?
Sure. The first item that President Trump is signing is the rescission of 78 Biden-era executive actions, executive orders, presidential memoranda, and others.
For a lot of Americans, it just looks like change. Donald Trump is someone who campaigned on saying he would test American institutions. And it looks like Donald Trump is delivering on these promises to upend Washington, to drain the swamp, to do it completely differently.
It was as if he was sending thunderbolts out to the country.
And here is the withdrawal from the Paris Climate Treaty.
All I have to do is put my Sharpie on the page and I can make law a reality. And he did one after the next, after the next.
The next item, sir, is a freeze on all federal hiring.
There were so many things happening at once that it was very hard to focus on any single one thing.
Address the cost of living crisis that has cost Americans so dearly. Requirement that federal workers return to full-time in-person work. Immediate restoration of freedom of speech and preventing government censorship of free speech going forward. Ending the weaponization of government against the political adversaries of the previous administration as we've seen.
That was what Steve Bannon used to call the flood the zone approach to politics. Just drown them in it.
Could you imagine Biden doing this? I don't think so.
That's President Trump. I mean, he's all about action.
And that's the problem. A president cannot rule primarily through executive order. He cannot do that. We have a Congress. We have a House of Representatives. Those things have to be debated. You cannot just unilaterally do those things. Okay? Who do you all think put together all of these executive orders and said, oh, okay, we're just going to knock everything off its ass? Look where we are, people. Look where we are. Mile-high inflation, unemployment rising, food prices rising, tariffs that might be overturned by the Supreme Court. Then we owe money out No, you cannot rule with executive order, this many executive orders all at once. Nobody's saying you can't use executive orders, but everybody else limited their executive orders because they wanted to have Congress and House of Representatives input. This president has issued 200 some executive orders. And look at the chaos that has ensued. Our Constitution is negotiable, apparently, because some of these things have went against the Constitution.
You know, all gas, no brake. I want to hit it and just overwhelm the system with action, action, action. That's what we call it, Days of Thunder.
President Trump ran on very specific campaign promises. He's going to reform our government to make our governments work for real Americans instead of the other way around. He's going to secure our border. He's going to get illegal immigrants, including dangerous terrorists, the hell out of our country. And President Trump is doing the unthinkable in Washington, D.C. And he's actually delivering on his campaign promises to the American people, and he's doing it very fast.
What he's saying in that day is, I'm going to be a man of action. It's a phrase he likes, a man of action. And he's going to do it with the stroke of a pen. We saw a president using his power from the very first moment in very expansive ways to put his fingerprints on all sorts of areas of the government and society. He signed more executive orders on day one than any of his predecessors ever did in their early days. And they stretched the power and the authority of the presidency beyond what any previous president had done.
President Trump leaving the White House for the last time as president.
Just how quickly and how fast things fell apart from this president.
He is leaving the White House with much fewer people standing by his side in the wake of the January 6th riot.
After January 6th and what happened on the Capitol that day, it was universally terrible. There wasn't even the most ardent Trump fan defending it. He had been entirely ruled out.
He leaves office in disgrace, the only ever president to be impeached twice.
Trump leaves Washington seemingly for 4 years of exile, maybe a lifetime of exile. Just utter bottom.
After President Trump left in January 2021, your audience should understand that President Trump and the core team around him, we were deplatformed by big tech. We were debanked.
Steve Bannon was Trump's 2016 campaign CEO, his White House chief strategist. He was charged with fraud and went to prison rather than testify about Trump's role in the January 6th attack on the Capitol.
In those years of 21 and 22, when the entire world was against President Trump and his team, it looked like the odds were so incredibly long.
It was a very lonely time around Mar-a-Lago. President Trump was essentially a dead political body left on the side of the road.
In isolation at his Florida estate, more trouble for the former president.
The FBI raided the former president's Florida home, Mar-a-Lago, unannounced, breaking into the home.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump once again found himself the target of an investigation.
A cascade of other legal problems, multiple civil trials.
Trump was found liable for sexually abusing and defaming E. Jean Carroll.
Business fraud.
Trump guilty on all 34 counts of falsifying business records in the Stormy Daniels hush money case.
A federal grand jury here has indicted former President Donald Trump on 4 counts.
Indictment after indictment.
Charged with leading a criminal organization that worked to overturn the results
The most serious charges? That he'd worked to overturn the 2020 election, culminating with a mob of his supporters attacking the Capitol on January 6th, while Congress was trying to certify the results.
An indictment was unsealed, charging Donald J. Trump with conspiring to defraud the United States, conspiring to disenfranchise voters, and conspiring and attempting to obstruct an official proceeding. Since the attack on our Capitol, the Department of Justice has remained committed to ensuring accountability for those criminally responsible for what happened that day.
Special Counsel Jack Smith had prosecuted Democrats and Republicans, but Trump supporters saw this case as politically motivated.
What they were doing was...
Yeah, but you all have to understand, this is Jack Smith. He was a special prosecutor brought in to prosecute the case against President Trump, right? And he is now currently testifying. In Congress. At least he was last week. This man wanted to come. He wanted to testify in public, but Trump and one of the House of Representatives, one of the House people, I forgot, Jim Jones or somebody like that, those two, between him and the president, told Jack Smith that he could not testify in public. Jack Smith said he wanted the whole America to hear exactly how guilty Donald Trump was, and Donald Trump forced him not to speak in public, told him you weren't going to speak in public and say these things that he had to say, but he had him dead to rights. Everything. This man right here had Donald Trump on everything cold.
So wrong and so destructive to the presidency that you can have a president throw his predecessor in prison for non-crimes. And that's how we destroy our country. That's how we become a third world Marxist hellhole.
Mike Davis is one of Trump's trusted advisors, known in Trump's circle as the Viceroy, a Washington insider, a former chief counsel to the Senate Judiciary Committee.
I was the only person, it seems, who would go on Fox News every day and defend President Trump. We've seen that they have weaponized, they have politicized law enforcement repeatedly to get Trump. I've done over 4,500 media hits supporting and defending President Trump.
But I believe President Trump knew that he lost the election. Donald Trump knows that he lost the election. He has been admitted. No, he hasn't admitted. I'm sorry. Giuliani, in his court case, in his trial, every person that worked with Donald Trump on that day, on January 6th, admitted in court that Donald Trump knew that he had lost the election, and he wanted the people to continue to fight. So Donald Trump is a liar.
They have completely politicized the Justice Department. This Justice Department is rotten to the core.
A lot of what they're trying to do is recast the narrative of what happened to him during his impeachments, to recast the narrative of what happened on January 6th, to suggest it was a day of peaceful protest and not a violent attack on democracy. I think the public record and the investigations would show otherwise.
This is lawless. This is Democrat lawfare. This is election interference. He has presidential immunity for his acts as the president of the United States.
Trump has come right up to the edge of saying, you don't get to tell me what the law says. I get to say what the law says. He believes, as he once said, that Article 2 of the Constitution means that he could do whatever he wants. He believes that if the president does it, it can't be illegal.
It was a familiar argument that a president was above the law. It went back more than 50 years to another president dogged by legal problems.
So what, in a sense, you're saying is that there are certain situations where the president can decide that it's in the best interest of the nation or something and do something illegal.
Well, when the president does it, that means that it is not illegal.
By definition.
Exactly.
If you think back to Richard Nixon's period, people called Richard Nixon an imperial president. He violated the laws, and his administration was corrupt.
Nixon was accused of weaponizing the FBI and IRS against his political enemies,
The country tonight is in the midst of what may be the most serious constitutional crisis in its history.
of covering up the break-in at the Democratic Party's offices at the Watergate complex.
And I don't think they want to go, I don't think the United States has the stomach to go through the same thing that we went through with the President Nixon. I don't think the public has the stomach. The Republicans back then went to Nixon and said, Mr. President, this is over. This is over. And you have to resign. We don't have Republicans like that in the Congress now. We have weak Congress people in the Congress now because they are falling down on their job because this president apparently, according to some of them, has violated the Constitution.
What did the president know and when did he know it about the cover-up?
And refusing to comply with court orders to turn over Oval Office recordings.
President Nixon announced that he will neither appeal nor comply with a federal court order to turn over the Watergate tapes. The news has caused a storm in Washington.
If you look at the Nixon tape, if you look at the Nixon case, President Trump is doing some of the same things that Nixon did. Not going along with court orders, hiding things, enriching himself. He's doing a lot of the same things that this Nixon did. They got Nixon kicked out of office.
And some of Mr. Nixon's most loyal supporters are calling for his resignation.
When the Supreme Court weighed in, Nixon relented, turning over the tapes and resigning the presidency in disgrace.
The president now at the door. A final wave.
After Watergate, there was an effort to reform the presidency and to put some constraints on it. A lot of ethics laws were passed. Independent agencies were safeguarded. The whole effort was to fight corruption, to fight tyranny, to make sure that a president didn't become a tyrant.
Congress tried to take some power back. One way to think of it is, Gulliver is the president. And then after Watergate, what Congress did is they tried to tie him down, just like the Lilliputians tried to tie down Gulliver. Inspector generals, special counsels, these efforts to reduce the president's ability to control the cabinet agencies. That was an effort to fragment the executive branch. I think that was the mistake, to try to solve the Nixon problem by making the executive branch less effective.
Law professor John Yoo has long been an advocate for strong presidential power and a controversial doctrine called the unitary executive theory.
It is the idea that the Constitution vests all of the executive power of the federal government in a single person, the president.
It was a fringe theory that had been rejected by the Supreme Court. And in those years after Nixon, president after president would find their power constrained.
The power of the presidency was probably at its weakest in the post-Watergate years. I don't think it really picked up steam until, the post-9/11 era. 9/11 obviously was a significant event that required strong executive action.
The Twin Towers, the New York landmarks have collapsed and are gone.
9/11. Thousands of Americans dead. A nation in crisis.
I can hear you, the rest of the world hears you, and the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
A presidential administration wanting to respond forcefully, exercise its power without constraints.
We also have to work the dark side, if you will. We're going to spend time in the shadows in the intelligence world. A lot of what needs to be done here will have to be done quietly, without any discussion, using sources and methods that are available to our intelligence agencies if we're going to be successful.
Alexander Hamilton had said, the definition of good government is an energetic executive. You want someone who can act with speed, decisiveness, energy. But you could see the presidency is trying to reassert itself to break free from these bonds that have been with us since Watergate.
John Yoo was at the Justice Department Office of Legal Counsel at the time.
The Bush administration relied on you more than any other lawyer in government to justify what they were doing.
We are protected from attack only by vigorous action abroad and increased vigilance at home.
You is on the extreme of legal debate over presidential power. That the law allowed the president to do extraordinary things after 9/11, including secret rendition to black sites, including torture, including spying on Americans with the NSA. Those things were nearly all repudiated, either by his successors in the Office of Legal Counsel or by courts who said, that's not legal.
But in the years that followed, the Supreme Court was ready to enhance executive power.
Justice by justice, the conservatives were taking over the Supreme Court, and the theory of the unitary executive was becoming more widespread. And finally, this came to a head, really, in the final session of the 2024 Supreme Court.
It was that Trump case about his role in trying to overturn the 2020 election. It had gone all the way to the Supreme Court. Trump's lawyers made the Nixon argument. If the president does it, it's not illegal. And in large part, the court agreed.
In Trump versus United States, the Supreme Court, with Chief Justice Roberts writing, says the president is the chief of the executive branch, and the president is also in charge of executing the laws. And for this reason, must have immunity from presidents later on prosecuting him or her for those decisions.
The president may not be prosecuted for exercising his core constitutional powers.
One of the reasons the Chief Justice gives is so that the president can fully run the executive branch without having to worry about his criminal liability or civil liability after.
The immunity decision was arguably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, legal victory that Donald Trump has had in his entire time in public life. It essentially spelled the meaningful end of the federal prosecutions of Donald Trump. That immunity decision, you could say that was like the precursor event to Trump 2.0 in almost every respect.
But here's the thing. As long as this okay for this president to do what he did, we don't expect to hear anything about Obama or Biden or anything else that Obama or Biden did in their term. As long as you rule that this president is not unlawful in what he's doing under the guise of the presidency, then you can't say jack shit about Obama or Biden. It is what it is. He has executive immunity. He has immunity, then so do they.
It was hugely important. It was the difference.
No, stop that, Samuel Moose. This president has been buying or paying for. No, I'm sorry. He has been accepting bribes for pardons. As long as he's accepting bribes for pardons, shut your ass up about what Joe Biden did and his family. He's selling pardons. Anything is way better than what the hell this president has done. That's crazy. You ain't got nothing. Stand on what he said.
Difference between President Trump going to prison versus going back to the White House. It was hugely consequential. It was one of the most important Supreme Court decisions in our history.
Trump won the presidency and a get-out-of-jail-free card. He has now been gifted legal immunity.
After winning an election, the federal cases all go away.
In his hush money case, unconditional discharge covering all 34 counts. No prison time, no fine.
Psychologically, it was a big stamp of approval for the sense that the president is kind of above the law.
I mean, literally above the law. That's what the immunity decision found. You can't find he's immune from a normal legal challenge. You got a pretty powerful feeling that you're kind of unconstrained.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear that
Now, that sense of power would fuel his presidency.
It signals a very different kind of president, and a president who doesn't want to be bound by either the Constitution or statutory law. He believes he has literally unrestricted power.
so help me God. So help me God. Congratulations, Mr. President.
The strategy is to flood the zone, to overwhelm the opposition and stun people who are used to the legal constitutional order and the rule of law.
Donald Trump immediately getting to work with a remarkable show of the use of executive power.
We're going to see a president pardoning people who participated in insurrection that he supported.
So this is January 6th. These are the hostages. Approximately 1,500 for a pardon.
Yes.
Full pardon.
Full pardon or commutation?
Full pardon.
Full pardon. People who beat police, people who hurt police, people who put police in hospital, people who did all of that. Full pardon. So as long as he did the full pardon for these people, y'all better not say jack shit about Biden pardoning his son, preemptively pardoning his family. Don't say jack shit.
He issues pardons and commutations to everybody who had been convicted of crimes in connection with the January 6th attack on the Capitol.
We hope they get him. We hope they come out tonight, frankly.
He said it was a grave national injustice, in his view, that they had been convicted and prosecuted.
Yeah, but they followed his orders. They followed his orders. And he knew, this president knew he lost the election. He knew he lost the election. That's the problem. That's unforgivable. And you allowed these people to do that. You allowed these people to do what they did in your name.
And he called them hostages.
Peter Keisler, a prominent voice in the conservative legal world, was acting Attorney General for George W. Bush. He has become a critic of President Trump.
There's really no way to understand that decision except as an effort to protect people who had committed serious crimes simply because they'd committed those crimes in the course of supporting the president's effort to stay in power.
With the stroke of a pen, the legal consequences virtually undone.
The largest criminal prosecution in U.S. history is abruptly over.
The persecutions of these January 6 defendants was so politicized, made it illegitimate. They went through years of suffering. They had their lives destroyed, bankrupted, lost family members. Some people killed themselves. So I have no problem with President Trump pardoning almost all of those January 6 defendants because they've suffered enough.
People who attacked Congress, people who used violence to spread their political message, people who had no regard for our institutions and our democracy. That's who he was issuing pardons for.
This was a day of violence. This was a day in which 140 police officers were injured, and we cannot rewrite the history of that day.
Property was destroyed. People were injured. Police officers trying to defend.
No, we won't ever forget that day. We won't ever forget what they did that day. They can be pardoned. They can do murder. People get out of jail all the time. They beat uncommitted crimes. People get out of jail all the time. But the one thing they're not going to be able to do is to gaslight us into thinking that you didn't do what you did. What you did was sedition. I think it was insurrection. Yeah.
Defend the democratic process. Die.
We stood up against a stolen election. We will be vindicated in the pages of history as patriots and freedom fighters.
No, you won't. No, you won't. You will be just what you are. People who stormed the Capitol. You only be that. Only in your mind will you be patriots and heroes. You won't be that way to the people who actually saw what you all did, and we watched you for hours.
He's put my family back together again. Without him, I wouldn't be out right now.
We don't condone violence, but we're also not the insurrectionists here.
I feel vindicated and validated. Yes, absolutely.
It really sends the signal that people can engage in violence on his behalf, and he's got that pardon power there for them. He wants people who are on his side to think, you know what, if I go a little bit too far, you know, they got a president there who's kind of watching out for you. It really puts us on a road that goes pretty far from the neutral rule of law and pretty far, unfortunately, towards a kind of personalized use of government to go after your enemies and to forgive those on your side who break the law.
Trump and his advisors were pushing to go further, exact retribution for what they called lawfare.
I think retribution is a very important component of justice. It serves as a powerful deterrent to people who may commit crimes in the future, that there are going to be consequences. The president and his Justice Department team should hold accountable those who wage this unprecedented Republican-ending lawfare against President Trump.
The first target, the Department of Justice itself.
They fired more than 24 career prosecutors, people who had worked either on the investigations and cases against Donald Trump himself or against the people who had stormed the Capitol on January 6th.
The message that I took out of it was, if you persecute Americans as a Justice Department prosecutor or agent, you're going to lose your job, and you should. When you try to throw President Trump in prison for the rest of his life, when you try to bankrupt him, when you throw his supporters in prison after January 6th.
Because it's the whataboutism. It's the whataboutism. We're not talking about, that's the problem that you all have. You cannot stick to a focus. You cannot stick to the script. We're talking about this president overstepping his bounds constitutionally. We're not talking about Biden. We're talking, or Obama. We're not talking about any of that. We're talking about this president overstepping his boundaries and violating the Constitution. Stick to the subject.
When you do these things, there are consequences.
They also forced out about half a dozen or so of the senior career leaders at the FBI. They were fired as a group because they were not deemed to be sufficiently politically reliable. The message is your job may depend.
So what happens when you hire people? So what happens when you hire people who are loyal to you regardless, no matter what? That's the number one requirement. What happens when you hire those type people? I'll tell you, HQ, when you hire people who are only loyal to you, they might be incompetent. They're definitely DEI hires. And they definitely don't have any loyalty to the Constitution. They only have loyalty to you. So why would the people of the United States want people who are loyal to a president and not loyal to a constitution? Why would the American people want that?
On you being perceived as supporting the president's personal and political interests. And that sets the stage for turning law enforcement into another instrumentality of politics, where if you're the subject or a target of an investigation, how you're treated may depend on what your politics are.
And that's definitely not what we what our Constitution puts forward. That's definitely not what our country is based on.
And that's the opposite of what the system should be doing.
It was time for Trump to deploy his own team to the Justice Department, one he could depend on.
At this stage of his presidency and what he wants to accomplish, he really only values loyalty and virtually nothing else.
Criminal defense attorney Ty Cobb was part of Trump's legal team during the first term. Now,
DEI wasn't our thing. That was y'all's thing. It was y'all's thing. You only goofies think DEI applied to black people. That ain't my thing. That's y'all thing. Yeah, that's something y'all started. Y'all think it's a part of being colored or being a certain color that you get hired for. Just dumb.
Oh, he's a critic.
He's not looking for them to tell him what to do. He's looking for them to do what he tells them to do. He learned a lot the first time around, I think, in terms.
Because I don't know why y'all got rid of it. It was only white women that benefited from it. White women and Hispanic and gay men. I don't know why you got rid of it. Y'all got rid of it because of the women, I guess.
In terms of how far he could go.
Trump's first attorney general was Jeff Sessions.
Sessions was a constant object.
No, we don't have hatred for one person. That's what y'all don't get. This is an incompetent human being. What part of that don't y'all get? Y'all act like y'all don't hear us when we tell you that this president is unconstitutional, that this president is I can't even cuss, so I can't even say. This person is incompetent for the job. And they have been from day one.
Of his ire, in part because of the recusal without consultation with the White House.
I have now decided to recuse myself from any existing or future investigation.
He quit. He was the first. I guess it was his lawyer. He was the first person to quit. He was like, ain't no way in hell I have loyalty to a person when I'm supposed to be loyal to the Constitution. I ain't finna do it. Yeah. That's why he quit, because President Trump wanted him to be loyal to him, and he said, I'm not going to be loyal to him. I'm going to be loyal to the Constitution. And Trump didn't want him to work for him. And so Sessions quit.
Of any matter relating in any way to the campaigns for President of the United States.
Trump saw Sessions' decision as disloyal, not protecting him from a DOJ investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election.
The Justice Department naming the former FBI Director Robert Mueller special counsel to take over the investigation.
That rubbed the president the wrong way, and he never got over it.
Time and again during Trump.
Sessions didn't stop the appointment of Robert Mueller. And so that was why Sessions left before he could fire him. Because Sessions knew how corrupt Donald Trump was. He knew.
Trump's first term, it was the lawyers who got in his way.
There were people in the first Trump administration, the so-called grown-ups in the room, more traditional conservatives, Federalist Society lawyers who were very conservative ideologically, but were also very serious lawyers as well, who were occasionally willing to say no to ideas that they thought were outside the bounds of legitimate legal interpretation or just simply bad ideas, to raise objections, to slow things down. One of the lessons learned for the people who stuck with Trump after the events of January 6th was that one of their mistakes was having too many people like that around the president. And there was a very deliberate effort to vet people to ensure that they would be more in the MAGA mold, more permissive lawyers, people who were not going to be obstacles slowing down ideas coming out of the White House, but accelerators.
His new attorney general this time would be Pam Bondi.
I think she's going to be as impartial as you can possibly be. I know I'm supposed to say she's going to be totally impartial with respect to Democrats, and I think she will be as impartial as a person can be. I'm not sure if there's a possibility of totally, but she's going to be as total as you can get.
So did you see how she acted in that session she had with the committee members? Did you see how combative she was? She's supposed to be neutral. Where was her neutrality? She's never had neutrality. She's never been neutral with anything. Her loyalty is to the Trump organization, to Donald Trump. We cannot have people running our country that are loyal to a person and not the Constitution. We cannot have that.
They were friends. They've known each other a long time. Part of this with Trump, yes, it is loyalty, and part of it is personal. She has served as his personal lawyer. I think he just really likes her.
The top deputies, Todd Blanche and Emile Beauvais, had both served as Trump's personal criminal defense attorneys.
The truism that he's treating the Justice Department as a personal law firm is almost literally true in the second term here, where he has filled its upper ranks with people who previously had been his personal lawyers. Defense lawyers for him have abruptly gone from trying to counter federal prosecutors and FBI agents to being the bosses of those people and being the instruments of his revenge against that institution.
It was breaking a barrier that had been erected after Watergate.
The Justice Department was not always as independent as it has been in my adult lifetime. John F. Kennedy did name his brother as Attorney General, but post-Nixon, because of who Nixon was and what he did and how the Justice Department abetted what he did, it has been separate.
Since Watergate, the norm, and it's been a healthy norm, has been really to keep hands off the Justice Department, hands off the FBI. I was in the White House many years ago. I actually went to the Justice Department very rarely when I was the Vice President's Chief of Staff. And partly that was because we were really not just encouraged, but required not to deal directly with the Justice Department. It was just considered a terrible abuse of power to try to use the Justice Department for your own personal purposes or political purposes.
But Trump wasn't going to follow those rules.
He's the chief magistrate and the chief law enforcement officer of the United States. And the Attorney General reports directly to him. The FBI director reports to him. That's one of the keys to the unitary theory of the executive, that in the office of the president is executive power, which has really been lost since Watergate.
Trump decided to make a statement. He would go to the Department of Justice, make it clear he was in charge.
By going to speak at the Justice Department, he is reasserting the president actually is, under the Constitution, ultimately responsible for the execution of federal law, for federal law enforcement, all of it. The Justice Department is not independent of the president.
Others who had worked in the Justice Department.
The whole point is this. When you have a president, the president has powers, but the president still does not supersede Congress's powers. And the Supreme Court is supposed to be independent of any action that the president has. They're not supposed to give him powers over Congress and Congress over him and X, Y, and Z. This is where everything is being mixed up. The Constitution is being reinterpreted by this president through his executive power, through his executive orders. And they're just allowing it to happen. That's why he has so many lawsuits, so many challenges in the court right now, because he has written EOs against the Constitution.
Saw it differently.
Presidents only infrequently go to the Department of Justice at all. And for good reason.
J. Michael Luttig was a lawyer in the Reagan White House, a veteran of the DOJ under George H.W. Bush, and a prominent conservative appeals court judge. After January 6th, he became a vocal Trump critic.
There's every reason in the world, under our constitutional order, for the President of the United States to keep his distance.
Oh, wow. You look like such a nice person. That's a rough picture. It's a rough picture.
The president's political rally at the Department of Justice was reprehensible, and of course, it was unprecedented in all of American history.
And my whole thing is, why didn't somebody stand up? You know why nobody stood up? It's because the Republicans are weak. They are in charge of the Congress. They are in charge of the Senate and the House because they're weak. And I don't understand how you don't see the erosion of your power as the Congress, because you're just giving him the power over your particular house or your particular branch of the government. This is why we need to vote all of them out. If your party, if you can't push back on your party when you see your president doing things that are wrong, and you cannot push back on your president, what do you expect everybody else to do? You haven't pushed back on anything that this president has done. Emolument, bombing of ships in Venezuela, starting 2 wars, giving money to Argentina. You haven't pushed back on anything. Not one time has the Republican Congress pushed back on anything. That's a useless party. If you cannot hold your people accountable, that's the useless party.
History.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Attorney General Pamela Bondi.
Hi, please be seated. Welcome to the Department of Justice.
It is an institution whose goals have uniformly been revered as a place where you try to at least achieve your vision of equal justice, unbiased justice, and depoliticized justice. Bondi didn't even try to talk about those things.
And we all work for the greatest president in the history of our country.
Clown shit from day one. This was clown shit from day one. We have clown shit from day one. We still have clown shit from day one. This is a clown, and she's right along with the rest of the clowns. This is clown shit.
Country. We are so.
She's the person that is charged with making sure that the president doesn't overstep his bounds constitutionally. She's supposed to help with that, but she hasn't. We're not in power, grown and shower, so therefore we're not obligated to do any of that.
So proud to work at the directive of Donald Trump. It is he will never.
She made a plan that they were all there for him and devoted to him. That's just not the way it's supposed to work. They're supposed to preserve and protect the Constitution, and they're not there to preserve and protect the presidency.
During the previous couple of years, while Trump was being prosecuted and convicted for crimes, he must have been seething and just waiting until he could take his revenge, because that's basically what he announced he was going to do when he walked into that Justice Department that day.
So now, as the chief law enforcement officer in our country, I will insist upon and demand full and complete accountability for the wrongs and abuses that have occurred.
There's a new sheriff in town. The American people elected President Trump back into the White House, and that Justice Department works for President Trump.
Unfortunately, in recent years, a corrupt group of hacks and radicals weaponized the vast powers of our intelligence and law enforcement agencies.
And there's going to be much needed accountability in his second term.
It's a campaign, and it's by the same scum that you have been dealing with for years, like guys like Andrew Weissman.
Wait a minute, I can give you 2. I can give you 3. Trump violated Article 1 of the Constitution. He usurped the power of Congress. That's 1. Article 1, Section 9. Trump redirected money that Congress explicitly refused to approve for the border wall by declaring a national emergency. The Constitution gives only Congress the power to decide how federal money is spent. Courts ruled this action unlawful. If a president can spend money, Congress rejected, elections and representation lose its meaning. Article 1, Section 9. He violated that one. Number 2, interference with congressional oversight. Article 1, Section 1 and 8. Trump repeatedly instructed executive officials to ignore lawful congressional subpoenas. This included refusal to produce documents and testimony during inquiries. Congress cannot check presidential power if subpoenas are optional. Abuse of the Take Care Clause. The president must take care that the laws be faithfully executed. Trump selectively enforced laws he agreed with and ignored others. Immigration statuses, inspector general protections. Presidents are not allowed to choose which laws apply to them. Number 4, abuse of the pardon power. Trump issued pardons to political allies and individuals connected to investigations that involved him. While pardons are constitutional, critics argue they were used to undermine justice and accountability. Pardons used to shield corruption weakens the rule of law. Violation of the presidential oath of office. The oath requires the president, that's Article 2, Section 1. The oath requires the president to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. Attempts to overturn a lawful election contradicts this duty, and he's been saying it since 2020. The oath is the foundation of legitimacy for executive power. Those are the reasons why he violated the Constitution. Article 2, Section 1, Article 2, Section 2, Article 2, Section 3, Article 1, Section 1 and 8, and Article 1, Section 9. That's just 5.
Message to me, at least, was this is going to be the Department of Justice that is basically the right hand of the White House.
Andrew Weissman was a federal prosecutor who worked for Robert Mueller investigating Trump and Russian interference in the 2016 election. In the years since, he's become a legal analyst and outspoken Trump critic.
If you are thinking about the attack on the rule of law, having a Justice Department that is not making decisions based on the political party or whether you're an opponent or a supporter of the president is...
Don't you worry about Ketanji Brown. Don't you worry about her. She's smarter than you ever will be. Don't start the shit. I just named you 5 violations of the Constitution. And you goofies over here talking about Ketanji Brown.
Absolutely central.
There's a guy named Norm Eisen. I don't even know what he looks like. His name is Norm Eisen of Crew. He's been after me for 9 years.
He's singling me out as an example. Hey, all you other lawyers, I'm going to make a target of you as well.
Attorney Norm Eisen was a White House counsel under President Obama and helped Democrats build an impeachment case against Trump in 2019. And he filed numerous lawsuits against the Trump administration.
His sole life is to get Donald Trump, and he's been vicious and violent.
When I see Donald Trump lashing out against the legal profession, I see a loser acting out of rage at the institution, rule of law, that he thinks he's right, is holding him back.
And not legit.
No, the way you came over here, Patrick, talking about a black woman is incompetent. That's what your douchebag ass do every time you come over here. Every time you come over here. Every time. Shut your ass up. You the one that's racist.
Legitimate people there. They're horrible people. They're scum.
It is the unambiguous declaration of an enemies list. People to become the targets of retribution from the federal government under his command.
I want these Democrat prosecutors and agents and judges and other operatives to understand there are still going to be severe legal, political, and financial consequences. The only way this will stop is if we give them very severe consequences.
Trump expected results and delivered a message directly to Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche.
And the reason I'm saying this, Todd, is I'm only going to get one chance to say this, but these are bad people.
When he said Todd, referring to Todd Blanche, who's now the number 2 person at the Justice Department, Todd, this is the only chance I'll get. He means Todd Blanche used the Justice Department and the weight of the power of the American government against Norm Eisen.
Of law and order,
He puts his arm around the Justice Department and essentially recruits them into his mission to take control. And in the kind of Orwellian guise of ending weaponization of the Justice Department, actually weaponizing it.
We will bring back faith in our justice system for the citizens.
I was shocked beyond words.
And that takes us and brings us to the Article 3, the judiciary, the attacks on the judiciary independence, violation of the Constitution, Article number 3. Trump repeatedly attacks judges by name, questions their legitimacy, and suggests courts should be ignored. He implied loyalty to him should override judicial rulings. Why does it matter? An independent judiciary is essential to constitutional democracy. This president violates that. Article 3 of the Constitution. This is number 6 that he is violating.
Even after all that we've seen from the president over the past 8 years, to watch him stand in the Great Hall of the Department of Justice, a sacred place in America, and claim that now he was going to get even by politicizing and weaponizing the Department of Justice and the FBI against his political enemies was a travesty in all of American history.
I happen to think President Trump should go there every week. They are shocked that he's in the sacred temple of the Justice Department. Them, right? This is what democracy is about. These are anti-democratic forces. They have to be broken. They are shocked because the President of the United States, and worst of all, Donald Trump, actually soiled their temple by going in there. He's President of the United States. He's the chief magistrate and the chief law enforcement officer by the Constitution.
The message could not have been clearer. Donald Trump is now in charge at Justice.
Outside Washington, Trump was also exercising power over the DOJ.
And my point is, how can we trust anything that they say? We can't trust our own DOJ. We cannot trust anything that is related to this president and demands his loyalty. We cannot trust what they say. That is an unstable country. That is a country that is in chaos. That is a country that has a constitutional crisis where the people don't trust any of the branches of government, where the people don't trust the president, the Supreme Court, or Congress to do what is good for the American people. That, what is it? The DOJ is supposed to be an independent from loyalty. This is what Comey tried to express. This is what Comey tried to get across to President Trump, but he didn't want to hear it. Okay? This is why this president is violating the Constitution.
Targeting its most prominent office in New York City.
There are 93 U.S. attorneys across the country, but the Southern District of New York is the most prominent in the country, often called the Sovereign District, because for so long, the Southern District has acted with the kind of independence from main justice in D.C. that other offices have only dreamed of matching.
The case, the prosecution of New York City's Democratic Mayor, Eric Adams.
The charges against Eric Adams were brought by the Southern District of New York. I think it's the first time that there's been a federal indictment against a sitting mayor of New York City, and charged with corruption charges, with bribery, all high profile.
And Eric Adams went down to Mar-a-Lago to appeal to Trump. And his lawyers made a case to the new team at the Justice Department that this case was interfering with Eric Adams' ability to help Trump in his mass deportation agenda. And they made a deal.
The deal that they came up with was one of the most transparent quid pro quos that you could possibly imagine. We made a deal to drop this prosecution, and in exchange, he's going to help us.
Emil Bove, the acting deputy attorney general, sent a memorandum that the case should be dismissed so that Mayor Adams could help the president achieve his immigration agenda in New York City.
The pending prosecution has unduly restricted Mayor Adams' ability to devote full attention and resources to the illegal immigration and violent crime.
And that's as nakedly political a rationale as you could imagine. What it says is that because Mayor Adams has said he's supporting the president's immigration agenda, he doesn't get prosecuted. But presumably, if he had been an opponent of the president's immigration agenda, he would have been prosecuted.
Bove's memo went straight to the desk of acting U.S. Attorney Danielle Sassoon.
Danielle Sassoon, who had been appointed by Trump, a conservative attorney, member of the Federalist Society, clerked for Supreme Court Justice Scalia. She tried to convince DOJ, appealing directly and sort of going around Bove to Bondi and saying, this is not how criminal law should be used.
The reasons advanced by Mr. Bove for dismissing the indictment are not ones I can in good faith defend.
That's when the issue catapulted into national prominence. It's when conservative lawyers and the Department of Justice objected to this because they knew what this was. They knew this was a quid pro quo, and that was deeply unethical.
Because the law does not support a dismissal, I cannot agree to seek a dismissal driven by improper considerations. Very truly yours, Danielle R. Sassoon.
Danielle Sassoon was not the kind of person who you would have thought was going to stand up to Donald Trump, at least not politically. But she believed in the rule of law, and she saw this as a corruption, and she said, I want no part of it.
Bondi refused to even meet with Sassoon. In her letter, Danielle had said, if you're not going to meet with me, if you're not going to reconsider this, then I will resign. She then got a letter from Bove, which said, okay, I accept your resignation.
The Justice Department will not tolerate the insubordination and apparent misconduct reflected in the approach that you and your office have taken in this matter.
I would say to Danielle Sassoon and the others that they work for the Deputy Attorney General.
Wait a minute. Why are you spreading false narratives and false bullshit, Mad Rush? The blue states take care of you red states. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Y'all just be saying anything.
Who works for the Attorney General, who works for the President, who's elected by all Americans. And if you don't like that, then get out of the Justice Department.
And many would. Nearly a dozen prosecutors in New York and Washington resigned or were forced out.
People in the Department of Justice don't just up and resign. When you resign, it's because it's either, in your view, amoral or it's a quid pro quo that you think is illegal. And that is the reason that you saw so many career people, including conservatives, say, I can't stomach this.
Upheaval in the Justice Department.
A showdown between the Trump administration and its own Justice Department prosecutors.
They wanted prosecutors across the country to see that this time around, they would not be standing for any pushback, that they would not be permitting offices, even the Southern District of New York, to push back against Main Justice, and that if you did stand up, that you would lose your careers. It's all about sending the chilling effect across the department and across the country.
That sweeping federal corruption case against.
You sound goofy as hell, Tony Tigers. You sound goofy as hell. That's well documented that blue states take care of the red states and not vice versa. You sound goofy and you need to go check some statistics because it's always been that way. Our states make more money than yours and we pay for most. We supplement you all. We supplement the red states. Stop it. Red states are the poorest in the country. Just be saying anything.
Against New York City Mayor Eric Adams is now officially dead.
Mayor Adams denied there'd been a quid pro quo or that he'd done anything wrong. But regardless of guilt or innocence, for the advocates of the unitary executive, Trump's decision was well within his power.
I think the criticism of Trump deciding not to prosecute Adams is way overblown. The president and the Justice Department have the right to choose who to prosecute and not to prosecute. The president says, don't prosecute this person. That is not illegal or unconstitutional. That's certainly constitutional. And presidents can do it for reasons that don't have to do with guilt or innocence.
The message out there to the public is, even if you've committed a serious crime, if you support the administration politically, you can get off. If you haven't, we'll throw the book at you. But if you've supported the administration politically, you may get off. It sends that message to the public at large.
Just the reason why, what's her name? Nicki Minaj got her behind up in front of Turning Point USA and started twerking for the goddamn president. Exactly why Nicki Minaj got her ass up in front of people in front of Turning Point USA and started twerking for this damn president. As long as you tell the president you on his side, you can get away with murder. Maybe I need to contact the president. Maybe I need to hold a press conference. Hey, Mr. President, I need X, Y, and Z and see if I get it. Yeah, we need to definitely support the president because he'll believe any damn thing.
From now on, there is no concept of an independent law enforcement function in this country. It exists purely to carry out the personal will of the president. The era that began with the disgrace of Richard Nixon and the forcing from office of a president who sought to use the machinery of government on his own behalf, that era is over very definitively.
Trump's transformation of the government and his use of presidential power would be far-reaching.
When Trump came into power, he was surrounded by ideologues who have been nursing these theories for quite some time that are really quite extreme. One of the principal ones is a man named Russell Vought. He is someone who is a self-described Christian nationalist who has been around Washington for a long time. He's seen how government works. And he has an idea of a really kind of radical change.
Don't keep going over that you. Don't keep going over that you. That's all it takes is a Google search. And you got goofies talking about something weird. You got to keep going over the same thing. It's like they don't hear it. I told you some of them are zombies. They just open their mouth and their eyes glaze over. We tell them the truth and they don't believe it. Tell them the truth and they don't believe it.
Changes he wants to implement. And he's someone who knows.
There's definitely a definition of zombies.
How to do it.
My belief is that the president has to move executively as fast and as aggressively as possible with a radical constitutional perspective to be able to dismantle that bureaucracy in their power centers.
Before the election, Vought laid out his vision in a chapter he wrote for the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025, a blueprint for Trump's return.
The great challenge confronting a conservative president is the existential need for aggressive use of the vast powers of the executive branch.
He told us quite explicitly he wants to search out for pockets of independence from its presidential control and stamp them out. He's made no secret of the fact that he wants to wrest for the presidency more power over spending decisions away from Congress.
Trump and people around him understand what we have to do to get back to a constitutional republic. We're going after the infrastructure and the plumbing and the wiring of the whole system. We are not going to quit. We're not going to surrender. We're not going to take.
Yeah, but why? Why would you feel the need to go after the plumbing, the electric, the wiring? Why would you need to do that? Why would you need to do that? Because what you're not doing is making it better. You're making it worse.
Take our foot off the gas pedal.
And in the same token, your president is violating the Constitution.
Now with Russell Vought, the head of the powerful Office of Management and Budget,
Y'all heard him? Oh, yeah, okay.
Trump would take on departments Congress had authorized and funded, starting with the agency that handled foreign aid, USAID.
President Donald Trump is calling for USAID to be shut down, calling the organization that delivers aid to people around the world corrupt.
Many people see as frivolous, if not outright wasteful spending. Shutdown of USAID could mean less medicine for the sick and less food for starving families, including babies.
This is a power grab. You're watching the presidency turned into something much more imperial than we've seen for a very long time, and maybe ever.
The Trump administration's efforts to reshape the federal government and its workforce.
USAID's workforce will be whittled down from about 14,000 employees to fewer than 300, a 98% cut.
Large chunks of USAID employees were placed on administrative leave and cut off from agency email systems and other databases. We had hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in play around the world in ongoing programs, all came to a dead stop.
Paul Martin, USAID's Inspector General, had spent decades in government, but had never seen anything like this.
People have dedicated their lives trying to make a difference at USAID. And to sort of overnight, without any engagement, without any warning, it was a massive shock to the system.
Hundreds of workers at USAID are cleaning out their desks.
An emotional exodus at the former headquarters of USAID. Recently fired federal workers were given just 15 minutes to clear out their desks.
I do think that USAID was the canary in the coal mine. The speed and the rapidity at which this occurred was pretty breathtaking.
A senior official at USAID called it a mafia-like takeover.
It's less than 1% of the federal budget. The fact that this was the very first agency they chose to target and force underscores that this is not a cost-cutting exercise. It's an exercise in power. It was a classic demonstration execution. We'll kill one federal agency in order to terrify thousands of others.
When Congress establishes an agency by law, that's not optional. That's a law. And the agency exists and then has to discharge the responsibilities that Congress has given it. So when the president tries just to shut down an agency that has statutory responsibilities, that will in many cases be inconsistent with the law. What's the point of having the authority to enact laws, which is Congress's big power, if the president can then disregard whatever they enact?
The thing is, this president is not in charge of his own presidency. He has people pushing this agenda. He has people pushing the heritage agenda. We said before they got into office that they were going to be following the 2025 playbook, and we said it, and people didn't believe it. This is the wildest part. Everybody should be taught constitutional history, the Constitution, all Congress, all of those things. That stuff should be taught in schools because a lot of people don't know it.
Go back to the unitary theory of the executive. The President of the United States, as chief executive, has the ability to make personnel decisions and to fire anybody. You don't have permanent employment in the federal government.
USAID was a perfect political target from their point of view. A lot of Americans don't feel all that aggrieved by that. And so, yeah, it was a test case and wanted to see how far he could go.
As he cleared the ranks at USAID, there was one more target, the agency's independent watchdog.
I too received a 2-sentence email thanking me for my service, but dismissing me as Inspector General.
Dear Paul, on behalf of President Donald J. Trump, I am writing to inform you that your position as Inspector General is terminated effective immediately. Thank you for your service.
No explanation, no 30-day notice, no reasons.
It seems pretty clear a violation of the law. You can fire inspectors general, but you have to notify the Senate. You have to give 30 days notice. He was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that.
From agencies all over Washington, 17 other inspectors general were purged.
The Inspector General community has been a concept created by Congress to help Congress and the administration conduct meaningful, effective oversight of federal taxpayer spending in executive branch agencies. We are Congress's eyes and ears. When you dismiss 17 inspector generals, you've turned the system on its head.
The role of inspector general was created by Congress. It is a response to the Watergate scandal. And often Congress will ask IG offices to conduct investigations that Congress doesn't have the staff or the power or the ability to do because they're not housed inside these agencies. So firing the IGs isn't just about creating a less transparent government, but also really cuts off a channel to Congress.
These inspector generals are a great example of these Watergate reforms that try to chip away at the unitary executive. If the president can't fire them, then they don't have to listen to the president. They don't have to take orders or direction from the president. And that, I think, is really an affront to the idea of a unitary executive.
What he's doing is systematically removing any instrument of independent accountability in the government. If Congress was healthy at all, it should rise up and say, our creations, we're going to protect our creations.
There really is no dissent, certainly within the Republican Party, which is what controls Washington. Lawmakers are almost uniformly aligned behind the president right now. And they also see that there's almost no upside to being publicly critical of the president.
This is not a usurpation of authority in any way. It's not a power grab. I think they're doing what we've all expected and hoped and asked that they would do.
Congress under the Constitution has plenty of authority to fight for itself. The founders wanted the president and Congress to fight. What they did not anticipate was political parties. The reason why Congress isn't fighting now, if people want Congress to fight more, is that Congress is controlled by the same party as the president. Congress, the majority of the House and Senate, probably agree with what the president's doing.
President Donald Trump is delivering on his promise to shake up the status quo in Washington.
I think all of us believe that we want to be good partners in making sure that the agenda that he campaigned on, in which the American people voted for, is accomplished and delivered on.
The fact that the Congress of the United States is silent is unforgivable. The system created under the Constitution was one of separated powers under which each branch serves as a check and balance on the other branches.
And we have no check and balance. The point is, when you do pushback against a president, and there is plenty of pushback, people voted for Donald Trump because they figured, let's hurt other people. Let's get those people up out of here. They don't look like me, so let's get them up out of here. White people did it because they wanted to hurt the other, or they wanted, because he ain't talking about me. Donald Trump is my president, and he ain't talking about me. He gonna hurt y'all people over there. And black people voted for Donald Trump because how dare y'all bring y'all immigrant ass in here and then think you gonna climb the ladder faster than me? So I want your ass up out of here. Two different reasons, same thing. And now we got people who don't want to push back on their president. If nobody pushes back on the president, what good are you and I'm in your party? Me and you are Republicans. I see you doing bullshit. I see you blowing up boats in Venezuelan waters, Caribbean water. I see you starting wars when you said you weren't going to start wars. Not one Republican did any kind of pushback substantial, except on the Epstein files. Now we hear, what is his name? That senator from Kentucky talking about you guys shouldn't be blowing up boats. Very little pushback. Now we can't trust you. We can't trust anyone to have our best interest at heart. None of these politicians have our best interest at heart. Specifically the Republicans, because they're not trying to give anybody anything.
Right now in America, one could not say that we have the separation of powers that was envisioned by our founders and written into the Constitution of the United States.
And that's why I say the president has violated some of his constitutional duties. The amendments, the First Amendment, he violated that. Free press and speech, Amendment number 1. Trump labeled the press the enemy of the people. He threatened journalists and media outlets with retaliation. Why it matters, a free press is explicitly protected to prevent authoritarian control. Even these journalists have fallen down on their job. Also, the First Amendment, the Establishment Clause, Amendment number 1. Policies such as the Muslim ban were alleged to target religion rather than serve neutral security purposes. Courts initially blocked these actions as unconstitutional. Why it matters, the government cannot favor or target religions. But yet and still, this president has violated that amendment, the First Amendment.
Without a functioning Congress, without an independent Justice Department, without inspectors general watching things, literally the only real check on a president's power at this point would be the courts.
It would be up to the lawyers to confront Trump.
When I saw the dismantling of USAID, I said, I'm going to sue. I'm going to go to court. I'm going to file a case. I'm going to argue this is against the Constitution. It's against what Congress has commanded. No element of Donald Trump's attacks are going to go unmet. We're going to litigate it and win, and we did.
President Trump was dealt not one, but 3 legal defeats in the span of just 90 minutes yesterday.
The legal challenges to the president's efforts to reshape the government mounting.
In the first months of the Trump administration, at this point, there's almost 200 lawsuits that are on file. And whether it's Democratic or Republican judges who are deciding them, Donald Trump is losing the majority of the time.
The battle significantly slowing down the president's efforts to downsize the government.
The lawyers are part of the problem. These lawyers and these law firms are oftentimes partisan actors, and they are coming up with plaintiffs to sabotage the president of the United States.
Trump would send a message to the lawyers, attacking powerful law firms that had crossed him in the past.
We're going to sign some executive orders. What they've done is it's just terrible, and it should never be allowed to happen again.
He ordered the firm's security clearances revoked, that they be denied entrance to all federal buildings, their government contracts canceled.
This is just gangster stuff. I mean, it really is. This is mob-style intimidation, because what it is saying nakedly is that I can essentially destroy the law firm.
And you're looking at about 15 different firms?
That or more, sir, yes.
Okay.
I am so impressed. The power of what President Trump did, I was stunned of how brilliantly thoughtful it was.
What the firms need to understand is that if I were their clients, I would probably find new attorneys, because if you've made it on one of these lists, you're probably not going to get a very good reception at the Trump administration for the next 4 years.
The law firm of Jenner and Block. This is a law firm that, as you know, employed Andrew Weissman after he came off of the Mueller investigation. He is one of a number of reasons that we believe this executive order is warranted.
He's a bad guy.
That is really insidious. That is saying that I'm going to target you if you take positions and bring cases in front of judges. In order to have a functioning judiciary, you need to have lawyers who don't feel threatened by bringing good faith litigation.
This is an executive order that takes certain measures against Sussman Godfrey, given their previous activities.
These attacks on the nation's law firms are intended to put the individual firms out of business, but then larger, to send a message to the nation's 1.2 million lawyers that they better never take again a case representing a client against Donald Trump and his administration.
Some firms fought back.
Hundreds of firms denouncing the president's executive orders.
Some even won in court. But the vast majority of the country's largest law firms stayed silent.
Some firms fighting back while others are bending the knee to Trump.
By and large, the legal industry has kind of folded.
These orders are certainly unlawful, and a judge has already said so.
The orders are unlawful. Goofy Charles Alden, the orders are unlawful. That's wild. And you saying, go Trump, go! Violate the Constitution, go Trump, go! Goofy.
But it's very difficult for courts to really remedy the situation, because at the end of the day, even when a court says that an order like this is unlawful, everybody still knows that the law firm is persona non grata, in fact, toxic inside the administration.
Several of the firms have come to the White House seeking a way to avoid punishment.
Paul Weiss now reaching a deal with the president.
That's your problem. That's you all's problem. You never want to hear the truth. You want to hear what you want to hear. That's the problem. You want to hear what you want to hear. You want people to glaze lovely against your president. Your president is violating the Constitution. Your president is a vindictive, petty ass criminal. That's your president. It is what it is. I can say it all day, but my shit don't mean nothing. These are top prosecutors, top people who have been in jobs forever and a day. But yet and still, it could be even another president, and you are another president, and you all will say, oh, no, that's a Democratic hoax. That's what we mean when we say that you're zombies, because you don't listen to anybody else. I already gave you 6. I already gave you 6 ways in which this president violated the Constitution. 6 ways. Okay. Article 1, Section 9. Article 2, Section 3. 5th Amendment. 14th Amendment. What do you mean? First Amendment. Freedom of speech. Article 1. Article 2. Separation of powers. That's wild. That's wild. Y'all zombies. You want the truth, but you only want to hear the truth when it's good for you. I'm telling you that he has lawsuits against him with these things in the lawsuits saying he violated the Constitution. And you're telling me it's a Democratic hoax. Lord have mercy. That's exactly what a zombie would say. Exactly. Instead of looking up the facts.
To get the president to drop the executive order against the firm,
After that was sent, they collapsed in their opposition. And here's what I tell people. They're not that powerful. This whole system has been so powerful and so overwhelming. They cratered the most powerful law firms in the country.
The word that largely defines the response is capitulation.
5 more law firms have now struck deals with the Trump administration.
It sent a message to the administration that this works, meaning do it again.
The law firms claimed the deals didn't threaten their independence and denied they were payoffs to Trump.
Have you noticed that lots of law firms have been signing up with Trump? They give you $100 million and then they announce that, but we have done nothing wrong. And I agree, they've done nothing.
Nobody can tell you zombies anything. Nobody can tell you zombies anything. Fifth Amendment, due process. Garcia, who they sent over to CCOT without due process. Everybody knows that. I don't need to give you evidence of that. Everybody knows that they sent them over there without due process. Period. That was the first thing they did wrong. That's the first thing that they did wrong. Just wild. Just zombies. Just a zombie.
Nothing wrong, but what the hell? They give me a lot of money considering they've done nothing wrong.
Altogether, they agreed to give nearly $1 billion in legal services to causes that the firms and Trump support.
All in an effort to sort of appease him and keep him from criticizing them or targeting them.
What? Oh my God. Did you just say, oh my God? No, I can't. If you want to talk, you want somebody to read some of your shit, put it in a super chat. Because I ain't reading no dumb shit no more.
I want these lawyers to understand that this is not the George W. Bush Republican Party. We're not going to turn the other cheek. The American people elected President Trump with a broad mandate. So time to deliver.
All American people should be worried about what we're seeing. I know lawyers are not the most favored group in society, but lawyers are who you go to when you need your rights defended. Lawyers are who you go to when you need to access the courts. And I think it begins with lawyers, but this kind of trend will expand across the board.
He is extending his reach really far, much further than most presidents have. And it's not just on politics. What's striking is how much he wants to impose his point of view on different aspects of society. He is trying to reshape the country in a way. It's not just whether the USAID should be an agency or not. It's what should be played at the Kennedy Center.
President Trump now is the chair of the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts.
Trump plans to fire Kennedy Center board members, appoint himself as chair.
It's what we should call a body of water off our southern shores.
President Trump is calling it the Gulf of America as opposed to the Gulf of Mexico.
It's what the Associated Press can put in its style guide.
Trump has barred the Associated Press from the Oval Office and White House.
You sound goofy, Tony. You sound goofy.
Press pool.
It's what is taught.
Especially seeing as how you don't know how to read. Especially seeing as how you don't know how to read.
In the classrooms at Columbia.
Columbia University will comply with policy changes demanded by the Trump administration.
Trump calling for Harvard to lose its tax-exempt status.
He wants to have everybody defer to him.
Paramount announcing they will settle President Trump's lawsuit over a 60 Minutes interview for $16 million.
And he is accomplishing a lot. And a lot of his people are very happy about that.
Here's what we know. If you take power and exert it, this system's not so tough. You know why? They're all gutless cowards. The university administrators, they're not that tough. The big law firms, they're not that tough. The media, look who's cratered. How many times, look how they're settling with Trump. They're not tough. We're resilient, we're anti-fragile, and we're tough. The people around Trump are battle-hardened, okay? You're not gonna scare us, and we're not gonna stop. And what we know is you guys are a bunch of you will crater. PBS is gonna crater. You don't believe actually at your core in what you're trying to do. and you'll fold, like the law firms, like the universities, like the media, like all of these institutions. You will fold because we're relentless and we're not going to stop.
PBS and NPR sued Trump over his attempts to defund them. Harvard also refused to back down. And many of Trump's efforts were blocked by courts. But he has been pressing ahead.
Our golden age has only just begun. We will never give in. We will never give up. We will never back down. We will never, ever surrender. We will fight, 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 and we will win.
Yeah, well, we got you until somebody stops and figures out that you have violated the Constitution. Sure enough, somebody's gonna impeach you. Come this time next year, I predict an impeachment.
Win-win. Together, we will make America powerful again.
On top of the fact that he's finna, what is it called? Pardon Ghislaine Maxwell. Pardon Ghislaine Maxwell. This is the biggest scam since Watergate. But we have the zombies on his side, so long as we got zombies on his side, he's gonna get away with it. Yeah, and he's gonna, what is it called? Pardon a pedophile. Go ahead on. They protect pedophiles. All of these Republicans protect pedophiles.
This is new territory for people. And a lot of people are very courageous in their heads when they imagine themselves facing the government. But then when the actual reality is looming in front of them, when the actual crushing weight of the federal government comes upon you, or the thought that you could be publicly named and shamed in a way that could bring threats and intimidation to your family, an awful lot of people are going to say, well, somebody else can take on this thing.
I've lived in Washington my whole life. I've never seen people in Washington scared the way they are now. I've never seen people in Washington as scared as they are now. They are scared to talk. They are scared to pop their head up. They are scared to be noticed. They don't want to be on his radar screen because they fear that he will use his power against them. When I call people to talk to them and quote them in a story, they say, hey, I can't be on the record anymore. I have a kid who works in the government. I have a brother who has a federal grant. My law firm doesn't want me to talk. I'm scared, they say. I don't want to be prosecuted. I've never seen that before in Washington. There's never been a situation where adversaries of the president, Democrat or Republican, felt afraid in the same way we're seeing now across the board to speak their mind.
He was attacking government agencies, overpowering Congress, threatening law firms, the press, and more. Trump's far-reaching use of presidential power was leading to confrontation with the Supreme Court.
I think the administration is seeking an opportunity to create a constitutional crisis. By that I mean a crisis that tests the scope of the judicial power to control the executive. That's why the attack on the rule of law is really Trump's focus now.
Trump's test case, an unprecedented campaign against illegal immigration.
A massive immigration enforcement crackdown has led to hundreds of arrests in a matter of days.
The administration claimed it was targeting violent gangs and criminals.
And the problem is they're not targeting violent gangs and criminals. They're targeting regular, ordinary individual citizens. That's why they could only deport, I think it was 17, but they had to release several thousand because those people weren't illegal. They weren't here illegally. They were picking up people they had no business doing. They were picking up people who had proof that they were American citizens, that they had proof that they were legal aliens. They had all the proof and they still picked them up. This president's immigration policy is a disaster. And he continues on with this disaster.
You had President Trump rounding up international gangbangers. They are robbing, kidnapping, raping, torturing, and murdering Americans. The president has...
See, this is how they got most of the goofies on their side, saying rape, torture, murder. And we know for a fact that the bulk of people that they're picking up are not criminals. The bulk of people that they're picking up are not criminals.
Absolute statutory and constitutional authority to get them the hell out of our country.
But many others were being swept up too.
Immigrants with legal status or no criminal history are also being detained and deported.
Many of the deported men lack criminal records in the United States, according to ICE.
The families of some of those men deported say not all of them are gang members.
How do you know that this person in front of you actually is a gang member? What if they say they're not? Do they have a right to some kind of process to go before a judge and say, mistaken identity, I'm just a barber, I'm just a soccer player. This tattoo you say is a gang tattoo is just my favorite team. What's your proof?
They are deporting people they've said are very dangerous gang members. But everyone in the country who's accused of something has basic rights of due process, which in this case would mean a hearing to determine whether they are in fact members of this gang and whether they are subject to deportation under the law. That's the process that the administration has tried to short circuit.
He's saying, all I'm doing is deporting criminal gangs, or I'm taking action against murderers and rapists. And it's very hard to get people worked up over concepts like due process, a legal term, right? But you know who does get very, very agitated about due process? Judges.
In an emergency lawsuit, ACLU lawyers presented federal Judge Jeb Boasberg with startling evidence. The government was racing to deport alleged gang members to a notorious prison in El Salvador without any judicial review.
Trump.
Yeah, this is what they did without any judicial review. You don't get to decide when people have due process. That's the Fifth Amendment that this president has violated. He's in charge, so he's the one who gets the charges. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. It exists because the government cannot punish, detain, deport, or penalize people without fair legal proceedings. That's why he violated the Fifth Amendment, due process clause.
He was rushing people onto planes.
Of course I don't know what I'm talking about. Of course I don't. I read the freaking Constitution just like everybody else. Of course I don't. Of course I don't.
Judge Boasberg said, slow down, temporary restraining order. Let's figure out. Let's freeze the status quo into place. Let's figure
We all lying, Bill. We're all lying.
out whether this is legal or not. You need to turn those planes around, bring these people back to the United States. And the Trump administration did not turn the planes around. They handed more than 100 people off to a prison in El Salvador. So that raises the question, not only was this legal to do in the first place, but did they violate a court order?
That was an extraordinary act. Virtually all presidents throughout history have acknowledged that you have to obey court orders, that if you disagree with a court order, it's not optional to refuse to comply with it. The answer is to appeal.
It's very close to just the kind of clash that everybody's fearing between the executive branch and the judicial branch. It seems possible that for the first time in the United States history, a president might just say he's not going to listen to the courts.
I'm happy those planes landed in El Salvador because the president had a constitutional duty to ignore that lawless and dangerous order and land those planes in El Salvador. This Boasberg, the clown, thinks he's the commander-in-chief. He thinks he can order the president to turn around military planes carrying terrorists. What the hell is Jeb Boasberg thinking that he thinks he can expose and sabotage an ongoing military operation? Judge Boasberg does not have the jurisdiction to do what he did. He did not have the power to do what he did, and what he did was lawless.
The judge in this case is essentially trying to say that the president doesn't have the executive authority to deport foreign terrorists from our American soil.
Judge Boasberg fired back, ruling there was probable cause the administration was guilty of criminal contempt. And Boasberg wasn't alone.
The immigration standoff is heating up between the Trump administration and the courts.
Court after court, ruling against Trump.
U.S. District Judge Brian Murphy ruled the U.S. government must retain custody of migrants,
challenging the deportations.
The federal judge appointed by President Trump blocked the administration from summarily removing migrants in South Texas,
Finding the administration was violating people's due process rights.
A federal judge says the Trump administration violated a court order for again sending migrants to a country they're not from without due process.
The Trump administration is now formally complying with the Supreme Court order to bring back Abrego Garcia.
This is a victory for due process. It's a victory for the Constitution.
The American public may not even know it as due process, but they know that whenever the government comes against them, whether it be in a criminal proceeding, a civil proceeding, where the government intends to take away your property or your liberty, that you're entitled to be heard. The Trump administration does not want to give those people the opportunity simply to make their case to the federal government that they're not members of the gang at all.
Yes, because they're violating the Constitution. They're violating the rights of these people. This president is a lawless president.
That's about as rudimentary and fundamental to America as anything that I can conceive of.
Despite the challenges, Trump and his team haven't let up.
And the question should be, why is a judge trying to protect terrorists who have invaded our country over American citizens?
The broadest theme that arises from it is a White House that is unafraid to provoke legal challenges and enjoys the fight as an end to itself, is not embarrassed by the prospect that it might be accused of doing something illegal, but revels in it.
We're not stopping. I don't care what the judges think. I don't care what the left thinks. We're coming.
I deplore the rhetoric that suggests that anyone in the government doesn't have to follow the Constitution or the laws or obey court orders. I think it would be a dangerous path for our country if any president starts saying they're going to act outside the Constitution. And so I hope it's just careless rhetoric.
We have bad judges. We have very bad judges. And these are judges that shouldn't be allowed. I think at a certain point, you have to start looking at what do you do when you have a rogue judge?
The Trump administration is escalating its fight with federal judges.
Trump suggested that the judges, including one he appointed, were backroom hustlers.
He went after the Federalist Society, a longtime ally that had helped him select judicial appointments.
Why is he attacking the Federalist Society when it was an ally in the first term?
Trump wrote on Truth Social, "I am so disappointed in the Federalist Society because of the bad advice they gave me on judicial nominations."
It seems like what Trump wants is just judges who will agree with him.
Loyal to him.
Loyal to him.
You have to think that it's a knowing effort on the part of Trump to delegitimize the power of the judiciary. I mean, what he's basically also saying is that there is no such thing as neutral law or principled law. It's all just politics. And that's basically Trump's view of judges.
This radical left lunatic of a judge, a troublemaker and agitator, was not elected president. This judge should be impeached.
This is unequivocally, indisputably, an attack by the president on the independence of the federal judiciary, pure and simple.
Amidst the attacks, Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts issued an extraordinary rebuke to the president.
Impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose.
Even Chief Justice John Roberts, who doesn't enter the political fray very often, felt compelled within hours to put out his own statement saying, you don't agree with his ruling, you go to the appeals court. You don't like the appeals court, you come to me, the Supreme Court, and we'll deal with it. What he did there was lay down a marker. Because what he said is, this isn't about Judge Boasberg. It's not about a rogue judge the way the president would like it to be. It's about the whole system. And Roberts took that arrow for himself. He was saying, it's about us. It's about the system. And do you respect the system?
Justice Roberts needs to remember that he is a federal judge. He's not a politician. And when judges take off their judicial robes and climb into the political arena and throw political punches, they can expect political counterpunches. And so it's probably not a good idea for judges to make political statements like he does.
Now, Chief Justice Roberts, who had written that pivotal presidential immunity decision a year before, is the face of a court at a crossroads.
It's a little bit hard to reconcile Justice Roberts, who has claimed to stand for the balance of powers in our system, with the same man who wrote this decision granting Donald Trump sweeping unfettered power. And now it seems to me that with many of these actions that Trump is undertaking, he's seeking to test the Supreme Court. Did you really mean it?
The last democratic institution that remains between us and the precipice of a constitutional crisis is the Supreme Court.
There have been more than 300 lawsuits filed against the Trump administration since he took office.
All the big cases are going to end up in front of the Supreme Court eventually.
These legal challenges are making their way through the appellate process. Some will land in the Supreme Court.
Chief Justice Roberts is on the hot seat because the judiciary doesn't have the powers of the purse and it doesn't have an army. So the only thing it has is its own legitimacy. And so they don't want to be in a position where they make a decision and Trump defies it, because then it makes them look like a paper tiger. So it's a tight spot.
What happens if there's a definitive ruling and Trump just decides, I don't care?
The president has acted as prosecutor and judge, but he's going to have to understand at the end of the day that for the federal judiciary to yield to him would literally be to surrender its constitutional role to Donald Trump. That's simply never going to happen.
But the president and his advisors are betting that the Supreme Court will see it otherwise.
They want to get a lot of these challenges into the courts because they believe that the Supreme Court, with a conservative 6-3 makeup, is a more friendly place to wager some of these fights over executive power. And I think that a lot of the people around the president have a higher degree of confidence now that the Supreme Court will rule in their favor and ultimately codify the expansive presidential power.
There's nothing to compromise. There's two different theories about what the Constitution says, what the framers had in mind, and what this country is. It's going to build up to a crescendo. One side's going to win and one side's going to lose. Trump is not only not going to blink, he's going to win.
A big win for the Trump administration. The Supreme Court slammed the brakes, saying no to nationwide injunctions.
And in the final days of the Supreme Court's term,
The Supreme Court potentially cleared the way for even greater presidential power.
victories for now.
The Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Trump administration's efforts to deport migrants to third countries.
The White House is claiming victory after the Supreme Court allowed the White House to move forward with the mass layoffs of federal workers.
The battle here may on the face be between Trump versus the courts or Trump versus the rule of law. But this is the battle for what is going to be normal in America. What are our norms? What is our system of government that we are all going to subject ourselves to? Do we have the rule of law or do we have royal decrees? That's what's at stake here.
President Trump seems to be riding a major wave of momentum these past couple of weeks.
The Supreme Court is allowing the Trump administration to move forward with its staffing cuts at the Department of Education.
The FBI is now investigating former FBI Director James Comey in conjunction with the genesis of the Russia investigation.
In Los Angeles, tensions flaring after President Trump deployed National Guard troops.
Our constitutional structure is definitely stressed.
Right.
And how it emerges from that will really depend on how the public understands and reacts to what's going on. Ultimately, we're a democracy, and our government is never going to be much better or much worse than what people want it to be. So I think ultimately the question is, how does the country decide to understand what it sees happening around it, and how does it react to that?
So let me play this right here. Because I love this right here. I love this right here. I love this for us. Hold on. I love this for us. Here it is. Listen to this.
If we lose the midterms and we lose 2028, some in this room are going to prison, myself included. If we lose.
Why would he need to say that? If everything the president is doing is so lawful, why would he need to say that? Because he knows that this president is unlawful. Let's say it again.
If we lose the midterms and we lose 2028, some in this room are going to prison, myself included. If we lose the midterms and we lose 2028, some in this room are going to prison, myself included.
I wonder why he keeps saying that. Why does he keep saying that? Because he understands that this president has been unlawful in his duty, in his constitutional duty. Because he understands that. The United States Constitution exists for one central reason: to prevent any one person from holding too much power. That is what the Constitution exists for. It was written by people who lived under authoritarian rule and understood that unchecked people and leaders become dangerous. Our system depends on limits. Limits on the presidency, limits enforced by the Congress, and limits upheld by our courts. When a president repeatedly pushes past those limits, those boundaries, danger is not theoretical. It's real. It's imminent. We are in a constitutional crisis with this president. Then you need to go, Matthew Edson. You need to go where they tell you exactly what you need to hear. Goofy. You need to go exactly where people tell you exactly what you want to hear. This president has repeatedly treated constitutional boundaries as optional rather than binding. From redirecting money from Congress that should have been paid out, explicitly he refused to approve, to ignoring lawful subpoenas. Executive branch has acted as if congressional authority is a nuisance, is optional, rather than a co-equal branch of the government. When Congress loses control of its spending and oversight because of the president, the people lose their voice. Because Congress is the branch closest to the voters. We voted for these people. The Constitution requires the president to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. That does not mean enforcing only laws that he likes, or ignoring those that he don't like, or ignoring the ones that tell him he can't do certain things. Excuse me. Selective enforcement of laws erodes the rule of law itself. When the president acts as though laws apply to other people and not him, the foundation of equal justice begins to erode. So the abuse of executive powers, especially emergency declarations and pardons,
further weakens constitutional safeguards. Emergency powers were never meant to bypass Congress for political gain. Goals, pardons were not designed to shield allies from accountability. So when these tools are used to protect loyalty instead of justice, corruption becomes normalized and accountability is out the freaking window. An independent judiciary is another critical guardrail. The Supreme Court is not doing its fucking job. And this president has openly attacked the judges, questioned their legality, implied court should bend to his executive will. When the fuck do they do this shit? Excuse my French. When citizens are encouraged to distrust or disregard the courts, these are legal judges. These are political judges, blah, blah, blah. The legal system loses its authority. We don't trust nobody. We can't trust nothing this president say. We can't trust nothing that comes out of their mouth. Without an independent judiciary, constitutional rights become optional. Our Constitution is optional. It's negotiable. Negotiable. The First Amendment exists to protect free speech and a free press precisely because those freedoms expose abuses of power. By labeling the press the enemy of the people and threatening retaliation against critics, this president has undermined one of democracy's most important watchdogs. Take away the free press, take away the truth, take away people believing in the free press, and you'll do anything. History shows that when leaders attack the press, it's often a warning sign of authoritarian drifting. This president is leaning toward fascism. This president is leaning towards authoritarianism. It just is what it is. Yes, he's a fascist, all right. Due process and equal protection are not technicalities. They are the difference between freedom and arbitrary punishment. Policies and rhetoric that promote without punishment and trial, collectively blame, discriminatory enforcement, violate the spirit and letter of the 5th and 14th Amendment. When the government decides who deserves the right based on identity or loyalty, nobody is safe. That's why I say him messing with the 5th and the 14th Amendment is crazy. The most alarming constitutional threat came with the attempt to overturn a lawful election that this president tried to do. Pressuring state officials. We got the tape. We got the tape of him calling Georgia saying he wanted them to overturn the election. We got the tape. So it's on tape. The president can't lie. It's on tape, him trying to overturn the 2020 election. And he knew it was fake. He knew it was a fraud. Pressuring state officials, promoting false electors, interfering with the certification of electoral votes, strike at the heart of our constitutional governance. Elections are how Americans peacefully resolve political disagreement. Always undermining those threaten the legitimacy of the entire system. Yeah. And I'm happy to be your jailhouse lawyer, Gregory. I know more than you. January 6th did not happen in a vacuum. It was a result of sustained efforts to delegitimize an election and encourage defiance of constitutional processes. A president's oath is not symbolic. It's not something that he takes because he wants. It's a commitment to defend the Constitution, even without the outcome, even if the outcome is not favorable to him. So encouraging or tolerating violence to remain in power is unconstitutional. It violates the oath. Okay? Violates the oath. The danger we face now is not tied to one policy or scandal. It's the erosion of constitutional norm. People find it easy to just flip over and say, no, he can violate the Constitution. He can violate anything he wants to. The guardrails fail. Future presidents inherit a weaker system. A constitution only works if leaders respect it and Congress and the courts enforce it. If they don't, we don't have nothing. When those violations like go unpunished or unanswered, like they have been under Donald Trump, the country becomes less safe, less stable, less democratic. That's why we have to stand behind the constitutional limits. It cannot be partisan. It has to be essential to the survival of this nation. Okay? It cannot be because you want to enforce that. Women, here's the ones. Let's read them. Let me read it. What did he do? Issuing an executive order ending birthright citizenship. Critics in multiple states argued Trump's January 2025 order ending birthright citizenship violates the 14th Amendment. Restricting transgender military service violates constitutional rights, equal rights, due process concerns in immigration. Judge ruled that administration must allow court challenges to Venezuelan migrants deported without hearings, framing violations of the Fifth Amendment, due process. Ignoring federal court orders, undermining judicial independence, reduction in due process rights, undermining congressional authority, First Amendment and civil liberties risk, emoluments and conflicts of interest, that's ongoing, and eroding oversight and accountability. These are all allegations, lawsuits, injunctions, etc., etc. Many of these actions that he has violated is still being litigated. Some are unresolved. Some have been resolved. No, they haven't been favoring Donald Trump. No, they haven't. Legal experts sometimes disagree about whether these actions actually rise to constitutional violations. All I'm saying is he's being tallied for the things that he's doing. And so when he leaves office, there's going to be other things that he's going to have to answer to. And he might spend some time in jail. He definitely might be arrested. Sense. Some of the things that he's done, and he's still walking around without any kind of pushback. And I blame the Republicans for that. But that's okay. I blame the Republicans. It is what it is. They want to have a president that does what he wants to do. It's okay. It's cool with me. All I'm saying is wait till the Democrats take over the House. Because once they take over the House, then we'll deal with the Donald Trump when we have to. Hopefully you guys hit the like, share, and subscribe button. I like to bring content like this every day. I appreciate a like, a share, and a subscribe. Please hit the like button. Nobody has TDS. You all have BDS. Nobody has TDS. You just have a shitty president. That's all. Don't try to shame me. You just have a shitty president. It is what it is. Please hit the like, share, and subscribe button. I appreciate this. We have content like this every day. I might be back at 9 o'clock. Yeah, I will be back at 9 o'clock just to do some, I don't know, 9 o'clock, maybe, who knows. Please hit the like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate it. I appreciate all of you coming out, okay? And listening to the the tape and listening to the amendments that we found that the president violated. Please do the reading on your own. Please do the Fifth Amendment reading on your own, because somebody said Fifth Amendment was something crazy. Who knows what that was? I can't even remember what you said, but I know it was wild, whatever they said. Please hit the like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I will be back later. And thank you very much. This is HQ. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, guys.